So today we're diving into one of Edgar Allan Poe's most chilling stories, The Mask of the Red Death. And really, it's so much more than just a scary story. It's this powerful allegory, kind of like a dark mirror held up to humanity's desperate, and let's be honest, totally futile attempt to just ignore its own mortality.
So can it? Can all the money in the world really buy you an escape from death? I mean, that's the huge question Poe forces us to think about here. This whole story is basically a haunting case study, right? It's all about what happens when you throw all your wealth and power at a problem you can't solve, trying to build a wall against the one thing that comes for everyone. All right, so how do you even try to cheat death? Well, in our story, it all starts with Prince Prospero. His entire kingdom is being absolutely ravaged by this horrifying plague they call the Red Death. And his grand solution? He decides to use his massive fortune to build a sanctuary, a safe haven. So what does he do? He literally locks himself and 1,000 of his closest friends inside this massive fortified abbey. But you've got to understand, this place isn't just a physical fortress. No, it's a psychological one too. The abbey, it represents that deep down human desire we all have for control, right? That delusion that if we just build our walls high enough, we can somehow shield ourselves from all the bad stuff out there. And the contrast between inside and outside, oh, it is stark. Outside the abbey's walls, you've got nothing but disease, suffering, and death. But inside, it's a whole different universe. Prince Prospero has basically curated this nonstop party world filled with pleasure, art, and what he thinks is total security. He's effectively tried to wall out reality itself. But here's the thing, and Poe is just brilliant at showing this. It's all a fragile illusion. This sense of control the prince has over his little world, it's completely superficial. And, as we're about to find out, it's also tragically temporary. You know, even inside this perfect fantasy world, reality has a way of creeping in. And in this story, it does so in the form of a constant, haunting reminder, this giant ebony clock. And this clock, it's not just there to tell time. Oh no, it is a massive symbol. It represents that relentless march of time, that unavoidable approach of, well, the end. It doesn't matter how much the guests drink or dance or try to distract themselves, that clock just keeps on ticking, a steady, rhythmic countdown. And check this out. Every single hour, when that clock chimes, it has this profound effect on everyone. The clock strikes and boom, the music just stops, the dancing halts, everybody freezes. You can just feel this moment of shared, unspoken fear hanging in the air. Then, just as quickly, they kind of force themselves to start up again with this nervous laughter. It's such a brilliant way to show that deep down anxiety just bubbling right up to the surface. So the clock's message? It's simple, and it's absolutely terrifying. Time is an unstoppable force, and every single tick is 1 second closer to the grave for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a prince or a peasant, you're heading to the same inevitable end. And that end, well, it arrives right at the peak of the party, at the height of the masquerade. This is the story's chilling climax. An uninvited guest shows up, and that fragile illusion they've all been living in, it's about to be shattered for good. Okay, so a quick bit of context. The party itself is happening across this suite of 7 differently colored rooms. And these rooms, they aren't random. They're an allegory for the stages of life. Our uninvited guest is about to take a journey through all of them, starting in the blue room, which represents birth, and heading towards that final black room, the room of death. So right in the middle of all the partying, suddenly people start to notice this figure, tall, gaunt, and masked, someone nobody has ever seen before. And its costume is just horrifying. It's dressed up to look like a victim of the Red Death. The mask looks like a dead person's face, and its clothes are splattered with blood. It's like the plague itself has literally walked through the front door. Prince Prospero is enraged. How dare someone mock him and his guests like this? So, in his typical arrogance, he draws a dagger and starts chasing the intruder through the 7 rooms. He chases this figure all the way to the very end of the line, into that final 7th room, the one draped in black velvet and lit by this eerie blood-red light. I mean, this is it, this symbolic setting for the final showdown. And right there, in that final room, the prince finally confronts the figure. And with a sharp cry, he just falls dead in that one single moment. all of his money, all of his power, all those high walls, completely and utterly useless.
And that moment right there, that perfectly illustrates the story's ultimate theme. Death is the great equalizer. It just doesn't care about your status. It doesn't care about your wealth. You can't outrun it, you can't bargain with it, and you sure can't lock it out with high walls. So after Prospero falls, what happens next is just the horrifying end of the entire masquerade. The plague finally and completely claims the so-called sanctuary he built. You see the revelers, one by one, drop dead from the plague. And as they die, that whole artificial world that Prospero created just dies with them. The lights flicker out, the music goes silent, and then finally the life of that ebony clock itself goes out, right along with the very last partygoer.
Poe ends his story with this incredibly powerful, unforgettable line. It is just a statement of absolute, total finality. The party is well and truly over, and an eternal, silent darkness has taken over everything.
So the masquerade, which was really the ultimate symbol of their denial, it's over. That fragile illusion of safety has been completely shattered, and all that's left is the grim reality of the void. And all of this really leaves us with one final, lingering question, doesn't it? Prince Prospero built his walls out of actual iron and stone, but it really makes you wonder, in our own lives today, what kinds of walls are we building? You know, the physical ones, sure, but also the psychological ones. What walls do we put up to try and feel safe from all the things that are ultimately outside of our control?